Alright, so this video, I'm going to go through the problems on the review packet. Okay, I said this yesterday, but if you can do this entire packet, there's no reason you shouldn't get at least a B, if not an A on it. So for number 1, they wanted you to find an equivalent expression. Okay, so one that is simplified compared to the one that we're given. Okay, now I see parentheses, so I'm going to do the distributive property first. So I get 3x plus 12 minus 6 plus 5x. Okay, and then I see that I can combine some like terms. I have a 3x, I have a 5x, so I'm going to make that an 8x. And then here in the middle I have 12 minus 6, so I get plus 6 here. Okay, so B would be your answer for number 1. Alright, and then here we're solving for x. Okay, so those are our multiple step equations. Remember, I had a list of things that you should follow. First being the distributive property. Okay, I don't see parentheses, so we can't do that. The second, combining any like terms. Well, I don't see any like terms on this side, and I don't see any on this side. And then it's getting the variables on the same side. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 8x from both sides first, because I want to move that variable over. So I get 2x plus 16 equals negative 1,782. And then I'm going to subtract 16, because this ends up being a two-step equation after that. So I get 2x equals negative 1,798. I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. So when I get x by itself, I get a negative 899 for my answer. Alright, number 3 should have been very easy because it's a two-step equation. I'm first going to add my 17 over, and then I get 39. I'm going to divide by 3, so x ends up being 13. Okay, remember, you can always go back and check your answers by plugging it in for x. Okay, so we get 3 times 13 minus 17 equals 22. And if all this equals 22, okay, then you know 13 is your answer. Alright, now let's move on to number 4. Oops. Alright, number 4, we have some decimals. Okay, it's again very similar to number 1, where we first need to move the variables to the same side. So I'm going to subtract 3.7 from both sides. So I get 6.1x minus 174 equals 628. Then it's a two-step equation. I'm going to add 174 to both sides. So I get 6.1x equals 802. Divide by that 6.1. So x ends up being 131.48 approximately. Alright, number 5. I see that I have the distributive property, so I'm going to do that first. Okay, you have to do the distributive property first if you see you have parentheses. Okay, and then you combine like terms. Okay, so don't combine this 5 and 10 right away. Okay, that's not right. Okay, you have to combine this 5 and the negative 40 to get negative 35 plus that 10x equals 848. And then it's a two-step. Okay, I'm going to add 35 to both sides. So I get 10x equals 883. Divide by 10. So I get x equals to 88.3. Number 6, remember our vertical line test? Okay, if we use our pencil or whatever straight product you have, you can use these straight vertical lines if you're good at drawing them. Notice that each one only crosses the graph at that one point. There's no vertical line that passes twice, So this one would be a function. But notice over here, if I were to draw this vertical line, it crosses at 2 points. And it can't cross at 2 points, so it's not going to be a function. Now over here, yes, it only crosses 1, but it has to only fail once to not work. Okay, C, if I draw in all my vertical lines, C ends up being a function. All right, let's move on to the second page. Okay, I know number 7, it was kind of hard to see, okay, the markings on the graph here. Okay, so just do your best you can on this one. Okay, so remember when we're given an input, when it's inside the parentheses, that is our x value. Okay, so I'm going to go to -1 on my x value, and I'm going to see where the graph crosses. Well, the graph crosses right at the x-axis, and that's at 0. Okay, for letter B, we get f of 6. Well, f of 6 is an input, so I'm going to go over on my graph to 6. Okay, when I find 6, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to check to see where that crosses. Well, it crosses right at 4, so my value for f of 6 is 4. For C and D, you are given the outputs, so that means that it's the y values. Okay, so we're going to go up to 6, and we're going to go over to see, oh, where does it cross? Well, it looks like it's about 7. Okay, so we go up for our outputs and over for our inputs. Okay, and then we have an output of 2. Well, I go up to 2 and I go over. Well, notice it hits the graph here at 2, but it also hits the graph at 5. Okay, so 2 and 5 were my answers for D. Okay, absolute value. Remember, absolute value, you're going to have 2 answers. Okay, you're going to have a positive and a negative. You're going to split it up into. Since the absolute value is already by itself, okay, I don't have to move anything over. I can just split it up right away with my equation. My x minus 4 equals a positive 72 and a negative 72. And then I just solve like I normally would. Okay, so x ends up being 76. And then over here, x ends up being a negative 68. So you need to make sure when you see those absolute value bars, you get 2 answers for them. Number 10 is different because notice our absolute value bars, they're not solo. We have this 7 over here. We have to move that 7 before we split it up. Okay, so then we have the absolute value of 2x minus 3 equals 11. And then I split it up. Big mistake people make is they want to split it up before. You have to move that 7 first. So we get 2x minus 3 equals a positive 11, and 2x minus 3 equals a negative 11. And then we solve. Okay, just like we would any two-step equation. So x equals 7. And x equals negative 4. Okay, so both of those are our answers. All right. So for number 9, okay, we still need to get that absolute value all by itself. So we still have to subtract that 6 from both sides. So we get absolute value of x equals 151. Okay, I can still split it up. X equals a positive 151 and x equals a negative 151. Look, I don't even have to solve. It's a 0 step. Great. Okay. Number 11 is a challenge one. Okay, I first had to subtract my 4. Okay, and then you'd have to divide by -3 because it's multiplication going on between there. Okay, so we get absolute value of 3x plus 5 equals -11. Okay, notice that anytime we have an absolute value bar by itself and that it equals a negative number, there's going to be no solution. Okay, that's only at the beginning, okay? I understand that in the other ones we had to split it up into a negative and a positive, okay? And that's fine because we lose the absolute value bars, but here, since we have the absolute value bars and we haven't split it up yet, once we see that negative, we can't go any farther. And number 10, remember, if we're deciding on whether it is a function or not, we're just looking at the x values. If at any time these numbers repeat, it's not a function. So this first one is a function because none of those numbers repeat. But notice here, -1 and -1, they repeat. So this one would not be a function. And the third one would be a function.